Hey guys, I'm Deric, and I've been running tech businesses and building tech projects since 2020. In the past few years, I've co-founded Sigma School, which is a coding bootcamp that has partnered with over 50 hiring partners and produced hundreds of success stories of people breaking into tech. And we've even been featured on the press. But I'm not here to boast. I mention it because through helping hundreds of aspiring developers, I noticed one crucial thing. The ones who succeed are not just churning through tutorials or copying apps. They are building something real, something that really adds value. I want to share that insight with you. And if you're new to software development, maybe stuck in a career that you don't enjoy and looking to pivot into tech for a better life, then this video is going to be for you. It's going to be 80% educational, and this video is going to be me just sharing the journey of how I figured these things out. And the core message is simple. It's that every junior developer needs a capstone project. That's it. By the end, you will know exactly why having one standout project will transform your learning and job prospects. So if you've been piling up many projects here and there from coding courses, but still feel like just another coder, then keep watching because this might be the wake-up call that you need. Oh, and stick around to the end because I will also show how you can continue this journey even in the age of AI. And of course, if you find this useful, please hit subscribe. When I say code monkey, when we talk about junior developers, a lot of them get stuck in the code monkey mode. And when I say code monkey, I'm talking about a coder who just writes code without thinking independently first. Someone who follows instructions really well or follows tutorials blindly. And early on in my career, I have encountered a lot of candidates like this. In fact, when I started landing bigger software projects and needed to hire developers, I was shocked at how many applicants had very superficial skills and projects. They all had the same generic portfolios, a to-do list app here, a weather app there, all following the same tutorials, no original problem solving or personality on display. And it became clear that a lot of people were learning to code by rote memorization, right? They were just maybe memorizing code, they were watching a YouTube video, they're following along, they were building a clone of some app and added it to their resume. Rinse and repeat, and the result here is a dozen of tiny projects that all look and function pretty much the same. And if you take this approach, you end up blending in with thousands of other newcomers. From a hiring manager's perspective, there's nothing that shouts, I can add value to your team, right? No one hires a musician because they can play scales. They hire someone who can perform a full song. And likewise, no one's gonna hire you just because you can follow a tutorial. They want to see if you can solve real world problem with code. And the truth here is those shallow projects do serve a purpose. They help reinforce basic concepts when you're just starting off, which is great. Following a tutorial on building a simple app can teach you syntax, using a framework, or how an API call works. Variety in small practice projects is good for learning fundamentals, but depth is what proves your skills. At some point, you have to graduate from copy-pasting coding and tackle a project that forces you to think for yourself, and that brings you from code monkey to a problem solver, and that's exactly what a capstone project is for. So what exactly is a capstone project and why does it matter? In education, a capstone is like the big final thing that showcases everything that you've learned. Here, we're talking about a comprehensive end-to-end project that you have built, that you generally care about, which solves a real problem or provides real value to users. It's not another contrived exercise, it's something practical, something that you might even use yourself or offer to others. A capstone project lets you prove that you can build a solution from scratch, front-end, back-end, cloud deployment, the works. It bridges the gap between just learning the skills and actually applying them in the real world. And why does this matter for your career? Let's break it down with first principles. What does a company hire a developer for fundamentally? To solve problems and to create value. And everything else, programming languages, frameworks, algorithms, they're all just tools toward that goal. If all you have on your resume are classroom exercises or tutorial clones, an employer cannot tell if you only know how to follow instructions or if you can tackle an unknown problem. But if you can show a project where you identified a problem, you devised a solution, you built it yourself, and maybe even got real feedbacks from users, that is direct evidence of problem-solving ability. In fact, 81% of hiring managers specifically look for evidence of problem-solving skills when evaluating candidates' resumes. A substantial capstone project, especially one addressing a real-world issue, provides exactly this evidence that they're looking for. There are other benefits too. A capstone project gives you a talking point in interviews that can lead to deeper and more meaningful discussions. So instead of fielding generic questions about JavaScript or Python, you might be asked, so I see you have built a personal finance app for freelancers. What was the hardest part of building this and how did you overcome it? And now in this case, now you're in a conversation about trade-offs you considered, the obstacles that you have hit, how you handle user feedbacks, scaling issues, etc. You're showing how you think, not just what you know. And this is huge because suddenly the interview now is about how you design solutions, which is exactly what a developer's job is. Look, I've been on both sides of the hiring table, and I can promise you one deep dive into a real project you built can impress an employer far more than a laundry list of superficial apps. It demonstrates that you have the initiative, you have the creativity and the grit. And these are the qualities that scream, I'm not just here to write code, I'm here to solve problems and deliver value. This is the exact message you want to deliver to the employer that you're interviewing with. Before we talk about how to build a great Capstone project, let's make sure you're not wasting time doing the wrong kinds of projects. And here are some common portfolio pitfalls that I see among junior developers. The first one would be tutorial follow-alongs. These are projects where you follow a step-by-step tutorial to build, say, a task list app or a basic blog. They're fine for learning syntax at first or a framework, but an employer looking at your portfolio cannot tell you what you did versus what the instructor spoon-fed. If your portfolio is all tutorial apps, it's a red flag that you haven't actually solved problems independently. The next one would be cloned apps. Think about pixel perfect replicas. Maybe you recreated the Instagram UI, or you cloned a Spotify player to improve your CSS or React skills. As exercises, these can be amazing to sharpen your skills, especially for things like CSS layout or even using an API, but you should not and you shouldn't showcase exact clones publicly because A, they're not your original idea, and B, probably you don't have the rights to logos or data whatsoever. More importantly, a clone doesn't show your ability to design features or consider user needs. You're just mimicking an existing product's features. Great for practice, not so great for proving your ingenuity when it comes to building a Capstone project. Next one would be course capstones that thousands have done. Some coding courses have final projects where everyone builds the same damn thing, a generic e-commerce site or a library management system defined by the course. You might get to implement it yourself, which is better than a guided tutorial, but the idea was given to you. And if hundreds of other students have the exact same project, then it will not set you apart. Hiring managers have seen it before and there will be no uniqueness to it. Next one would be 1 week freelance flicks, right? Some newbies try freelancing for small businesses, which can be a pretty good learning experience. And it could also help you get some confidence in, monetizing your skills for the first time. And that's amazing. For instance, making a simple website for a local store shows initiative and can teach you about real clients. But often these gigs are very limited in scope. A single page website, but they might not demonstrate the depth of software engineering skills that a product company would actually care about. If you only build trivial apps that a non-coder could throw together with a website builder, you're not showcasing your full potential as a software developer, okay? By all means, mention your freelance work. It shows that you can hustle, but understand its limits. A complex capstone you architect and own will usually carry way more weight than a couple of small client websites. The next will be token open source contributions. Contributing to open source is amazing and fantastic if you generally dive into it, but I've seen so many folks brag about a single GitHub pull request where they maybe fix a typo or tweak some small CSS. That's not going to help move the needle. Open source can be a capstone of its own. For example, adding a significant feature to a popular project or maintaining your own library. But doing it just to check the box is transparent. Hiring managers can see the difference between substantial contributions and drive-by commits. So don't stretch a minor contribution into a big resume item. If you love an open source tool and spend months contributing meaningful changes, that's great. That can even be your capstone, but if not, focus your energy on something where you can lead the charge. All right, I know these were a little bit blunt, but I just want you to know and be aware of where not to spend too much of your precious time. So what should you do instead? Let's get into how to choose and execute a capstone project that will actually make you a better developer and actually impress others. One question that I get a lot is, what project should I build? And often people want to hear a very neat answer, like build a to-do list with a feature of XYZ, right? Make a Twitter clone but for hobby UI. That misses the point. If I just tell you an idea and you go implement it, you're back to being a code monkey following instructions. The whole purpose of the Capstone project is for you to flex your own problem solving and creativity muscles. A piece of advice that I love comes from investor and philosopher Naval Ravikant. He says, you escape competition through authenticity by being your very own self. In other words, no one can compete with you at being you. Your background, your interests, your frustrations, those are fertile ground for unique project ideas that others might not think of. So start directly from there and ask yourself, what problems have I personally faced? Perhaps in your previous jobs or in your daily life, you found yourself thinking, oh, if only there was an app for this. For example, if you worked in healthcare, maybe appointment systems were a nightmare. Could you build a smoother scheduling app for clinics? If you were in finance, perhaps you saw inefficiencies in budgeting or compliance that a small tool could fix. Drawing on an industry you know gives you insight into the real pain that others might overlook. One of our Sigma School graduates was a formal medical doctor, and she leveraged her healthcare experience to thrive as a developer, and you can bet her perspective on building health tech solutions was a big plus. Use what you know from your past life to your advantage. Next, what are you passionate about? Think of your hobbies or causes that you care about. Are you a fitness enthusiast who wishes your gym buddies could better share workouts? Maybe build a social fitness challenge app. Into music maybe? Perhaps you've imagined a better way for friends to collaborate on playlists or a tool for indie musicians to share loops. When you work on something that you genuinely find fun or important, two things happen. You stay motivated because it's not just homework now, it's personal. And the end result often reflects that passion, which other people can feel and they can sense it. And even if the idea seems niche, that's completely fine, because if you would love using it, chances are others with the same interest would. Next thing would be asking yourself, is there a manual process I know right now that can be automated? And this is a great source of ideas. Maybe your friend runs a small business and spends hours every week scheduling Instagram posts or organizing inventory in Excel. Could you build a simple app that saves them time? Not every project needs to be the next Facebook. Even a modest tool that clearly saves time or money for someone can be very impressive. It shows that you can understand a workflow and improve it with software. Plus, if it's for someone you know, you instantly have a client to give feedback, and possibly you can say something like, I built a system that cut my friend's inventory tracking system by 50%, and that's real impact. Next thing would be, could developers themselves use the tool? And this one's a bit meta, but some of the coolest Capstone projects that I've seen are developer tools. As you're coding, pay attention to moments where you think, this is so tedious, or I wish there was an easy way to do X. Maybe you create a VS Code extension that auto formats a certain boilerplate, or a small script that helps generate better commit messages. If it's useful for you, it could be useful for others, and showing that you can improve the developer experience demonstrates your really advanced thinking. Plus, your users for feedback are literally all around you in coding communities. So the key here, actually, it's not so much on building stuff, it's about also on training that idea muscle that you have. The first time you sit down to brainstorm a project, you might draw a blank or come up with a very broad idea. And that's okay. Start with what you know. Write down frustrations or inefficiencies that you've encountered through work, school, or in your personal life. No matter how small, list them out. You might end up with something like, my friend's retail shop has trouble tracking deliveries, or as a student, I hated how study notes got disorganized, or my community gardening club needs a way to coordinate tasks. And any one of these things could be a seed of a project. Remember, your Capstone project doesn't have to sound sexy to be effective. It has to be useful. And one of my role models, Jason Fried, which is the founder of Basecamp, has a philosophy that I admire so much. He says, make something unique and make it well. He said, version 1 won't be everything to everyone, but it will be everything to us. Just what we need and nothing more. In other words, solve your own problems first, even if it's for a tiny audience of you and a few others, and solve it deeply. That focus and authenticity will make your project stand out far more than trying to build the next big trendy app that you actually don't care about. So once you have an idea that excites you, you're ready for the next phase, which is building it out the Capstone style. Now it's time to execute this, right? This is where you take that idea and turn it into a tangible product. A big mistake here is trying to incorporate every new technology or making the project overly ambitious. Remember, this project is first and foremost for you to learn and demonstrate skill. Any external success, you think about number of users or money coming in, those are bonus. So keep it realistic, right? Pick a tech stack and go deep with it. You might have heard of the term T-shaped skills. Broad knowledge with deep expertise in one area. For your project, it's often better to have a smaller scope but really solid implementation than to attempt something sprawling that you can never finish. Choose a stack that aligns with your jobs you want and that you enjoy working with. For example, if web development is your goal and you've been learning JavaScript, maybe the stack is React for the front end, Node or Express.js for the back end, and a MongoDB or Postgres database. That combo, or the classic MERN stack, is very popular and still very in demand. So building a portfolio and your Capstone project with it not only cements your skills, but also creates a portfolio piece that in the tech that employers are actively seeking for. And most importantly, by sticking to one main stack, you push yourself to go deep into it to solve all problems, front end, back end, database, deployment. Using these tools, which gives you depth, it's okay if your stack isn't perfect for the problem. What matters here is that you can demonstrate your mastery of it. As a self-taught developer, I personally did this. I doubled down on the tools that were marketable and that I could master rather than constantly chasing shiny new frameworks. And it paid off when showing work to others, especially those who are experienced. They don't want to see you know 10 or 20 programming languages. They rather you know one and go very deep into it. Next would be to plan out the core features of your applications. Treat it like a real product you're going to deliver. Write down the main things it's going to do. If it's going to be a gardening club app, for example, maybe the core features are user login, sign up, a task list for garden chores, a calendar for meetups, and a way to log the harvest that you had coming on. And that's already a lot. Identify and order. Perhaps start with user accounts and the task list, because that's the heart of coordinating chores. And think in terms of an MVP, a minimum viable product, the smallest version of your idea that is still useful. Unlike in a tutorial, no one's going to give you a step-by-step guide here. So you decide what to build first, second, and third. This is great practice for real-world development where you have to break a project into manageable pieces. And as you build, use best practices from day one itself. And this means use version control. Initialize that Git repository on day one itself and make regular commits. Not only will this save your butt if you mess up, it also shows any observer, like a recruiter glancing at your GitHub, how you write code over time, how you structure your commits. Comment your code where necessary, and definitely with a good README for your project. One that explains what the project is, what tech you used, and how to run it. A clear README in your GitHub repo makes you look professional and organized, and it's something that many candidates seem to overlook today. One more thing, consider deploying your project if possible. There are so many free or low-cost ways today to host web applications, and nothing wows your employers like you being able to say, you can try it out here, click on this link, and then giving them a link. If it's a mobile app, you could record a short video demo of it in action. The idea is to lower the barrier for someone to experience your project. A hiring manager with 5 minutes is much more likely to click a link and play with your app than to pull out your code, clone it from GitHub and compile it and run it themselves. Show that you went the extra mile to package your project for an audience. And all these steps, right, from planning features, using Git, writing docs, deploying, showcase that you treat your project seriously like a real product. And that implies that you will treat their product seriously if they hire you. And it's subtle signaling, but it's very, very effective. Now, as you build, you will inevitably hit roadblocks. Maybe you can't figure out how to optimize a database query, or your UI state management gets really wonky. This is where the real learning happens. And do not give up. Debug systematically, read documentation, and ask questions on forums if you need to. The persistence that you build here is exactly what you need to become a stronger software developer. Most junior developers stop when it gets hard. If you can continue, that's how you set yourself apart. Once you have a version 1, even if it's basic, gather feedback. If you have a target user, for example, your friend or your former colleagues in that industry, ask them to try it and be honest about what works and what doesn't. Or share it in a relevant online community, say a subreddit or a forum related to your project's domain, and see what people say. Yes, this can be intimidating, but even a handful of users giving you feedback is gold. You will learn which features are actually valuable and what you might need to improve. And then congrats, that's it, right? You've just moved into the iterative improvement phase that real products go through. Incorporating feedback and releasing updates will show that you can respond to user needs and improve a product over time. That's advanced stuff for a junior developer. And if you can talk about how you handle user feedback, that'll be so damn impressive to a lot of employers out there. Quick personal example, when we first launched Sigma School as an online bootcamp, we tested the entire concept with very minimal offering. We spent just like 3,000 ringgit on some test ads, and we ended up getting 30,000 ringgit worth of enrollments in the first month before our product was even fully built. And that blew our minds. It was so clear that we struck a nerve and we're solving a real need. We then doubled down and refined the product. I learned that putting something out there, even if it's not perfect, leads to insights that you'll never get if you stay in development mode forever. The same applies to your capstone. Don't hide it until it's perfect. Get it in front of a few people, because their reactions will guide you on what to do next. And who knows, your project might even gain some traction beyond just being a portfolio piece. If you're really lucky or solving a pressing problem, someone might even pay for your app or service. And that kind of validation, users and revenue maybe, it's like the holy grail. It certainly isn't necessary for a good capstone project, but it definitely won't hurt to say 100 people has used the app every week, or I have a few paying customers covering my server costs. Even a single customer or an encouraging email from a user is evidence that your project isn't just a toy, it's actually working and providing value. However, always keep your eyes on the main prize, which is in this case learning and showcasing skills. Don't worry if your project isn't making money. This isn't about founding the next startup, though that'd be a really good, cool side effect. The goal is to grow your abilities and have something awesome to talk about in interviews or networking situations. So remember, impact and learning first, polish second. For example, in our bootcamp, we emphasize real-world projects so much that students graduate with a portfolio demonstrating that they can deliver real value to employers, and that often matters so much more than any degree on paper. And that same philosophy applies to your self-driven Capstone. So the mindset you need here is grit. That's the most important mindset, grit, the growth mindset, right? Building a Capstone project is not easy. If it were, every junior developer would have one, but they don't. Most will start with a somewhat ambitious project, hit a snag, right? Hit some kind of blockers and lose interest, and then it just fades away. If you can push through those tough moments, you've already separated yourself from the pack. I often say that the difference between a dabbler and a developer is finishing what you start, even if the project evolves over time. Bringing it to a point where it's usable and polished is an achievement in discipline. There were times in my journey I felt like relaxing after a big win. For example, in 2024, Sigma School was running a healthy 70 to 80% profit margin. And theoretically, I could have just coasted for a while, but I realized that I'm still young and hungry, and I wanted to make bigger dent in my universe, right? As I wrote in my journal, I want to make a massive impact, whether that's driven by a need to leave a legacy or just the urge to build something great. The point is, I wasn't ready to chill, and neither should you be. Just because you learn enough coding to be average, don't settle at the plateau of good enough to get a job, maybe, right? If you coast now, you'll never know what you're truly capable of. Instead, get your hands dirty always and build that thing that excites you or even scares you a little bit. You grow most when you stretch beyond your comfort zone. Another mindset shift, which is to think like an owner, not just an employee. And this is something I admire in entrepreneurs like Andrew Wilkinson and Peter Levels, who focus on sustainable hands-on building. Even if you're seeking a job, approach your project as if it's your own product or business. And this encourages you to take quality seriously, to consider the user's perspective, to manage scope, and to wear multiple hats like a developer, a tester, or maybe even a marketeer. Those are qualities of a standout developer in any company. When you talk about your Capstone in an interview and you can convey, I really cared about how much users would experience this, or I had to figure out hosting costs so my app could run cheaply, you can come across as so much more mature and responsible. And trust me, employers love that. And that's the complete opposite of a code monkey mentality. Also, be open to learning beyond coding through this process. You might pick up some project management or some UI UX design thinking skills, or even a bit of marketing when you share your app. And that's fantastic. Those skills will only make you so much more well-rounded. For example, writing a blog post or making a short demo video about your project can both promote it and show off your communication skills. Don't hesitate to document your journey on LinkedIn or Twitter. You might even attract the attention of a recruiter or a like-minded collaborator. I've had people reach out to me because they saw a post about something I built. Opportunities often come from simply putting yourself out there with confidence and humility. And finally, let's just address the elephant in the room as well, right? What about AI? Won't ChatGPT just code everything? Is it even worth doing all of this? I get this question so much these days. And yes, AI is changing the developer's role, but it's not replacing the need for human creativity and problem solving. Companies still desperately need developers who can think critically, to build, to innovate, and to solve complex problems. And in fact, with AI automating routine tasks, those human problem solving skills are more valuable than ever. As I told a journalist recently, the rise of AI is actually making the gap wider between engineers who know how to leverage those tools and those who do not. So wouldn't you want to be in the camp who knows how to leverage them? Building a Capstone project can even be a chance to use AI to your advantage. Maybe you could incorporate an AI API, or you could use ChatGPT to brainstorm or debug. Far from making projects obsolete, AI can enhance what you build, ensuring that you as a new developer can integrate AI or adapt to new technologies which will make you even more attractive. And in short, this is the best time, if any, to enter tech and to sharpen your skills, because the demand for capable builders is still huge and it's just growing and it's evolving. Don't let the AI hype scare you off from creating. If anything, let it inspire you to be the developer who builds with AI tools in your toolkit. So to wrap up here, here's the big takeaway. Don't just be a code monkey, be a problem solver. From having one well-crafted Capstone project is your arsenal that can help you truly turbocharge your career from a newbie to becoming employable or even becoming an entrepreneur. It's the proof that you can take all those coding lessons and actually build something that matters. It's also a reflection of you, your interest, your effort, and your perseverance. No two great Capstone projects are alike because each represent the unique path of its creator. That's the polar opposite to those cookie cutter tutorial projects. So I challenge you to think about what your Capstone project would be. It might start small, that's fine. Mine started with a tiny 3,000 ringgit experiment. Yours might start as a weekend hack for a friend or a personal scratch, but nurture it, iterate on it, use it to learn the deeper stuff. Even if it never becomes a unicorn startup, most won't, right? The process will make you a significantly better developer and a storyteller of your own skills. In an interview, instead of saying, I know React, you could say, I built a web app using React and Node that helped 50 local volunteers coordinate disaster relief efforts, and along the way, I learned how to optimize an interactive map for performance. Now, imagine how powerful that sounds compared to a typical newbie pitch. It's night and day, right? Employers remember candidates who have a story and a mission, not just a checklist of skills. So yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you so much for watching and hearing me out. I hope this inspired you to start or continue working on a project that excites you. If you got value from this, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more insights. I'm passionate about helping people break into tech and to level up their skills, and I've got so much more to share. And if you're looking for guidance on this journey, consider checking out Sigma School, our coding bootcamp. Even in this age of AI, we focus on exactly what I've talked about, hands-on projects and real-world skills to turn our students into the kind of developers companies are dying to hire. In fact, our approach of practical learning and portfolio building has led to every single one of our graduates who wanted a tech job landing one, often even before they finish. We're constantly updating the curriculum with AI and with other cutting-edge tools, but the goal remains the same, which is to create builders and to help you land jobs. So if you want that structured support plus a job guarantee to back it up, the link is in the description below. What we say is, if you don't get a job after you graduate, we give you your money back. No matter what you do next, remember, you have something unique to offer. Don't shortchange the world by keeping it bottled up, okay? Go and build something out there that only you could build, and let that be your calling card. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.